Across the world, people wake up to do their 9 to 5 and at some point feel they need a change. This is exactly how Adams and Julie Hayne felt, a couple who decided one day their stressful jobs and hustle and bustle of city life was too much for them, that they might break as individuals and as a couple. But unlike most, they actually took the leap and moved to St. Croix, a little island in the U.S. Virgin Islands. They proved it's possible to have a more easygoing, beautiful lifestyle. Now they are a power couple that use their strengths to start a beautiful and very popular bed and breakfast, as well as doing private chef events. But how did they get here?
As a kid, following my father around, mother, grandmother in the kitchen, I was just hanging out. They needed somebody to look after me. My grandmother, she was always cooking, so I was following her around, making biscuits with her and stuff. Never thought, as a kid, that's something I'd be doing. My father always cooked barbecue, and I was always helping him. And then one time he broke his leg and I had to cook dinner. So things I started to learn. Probably didn't taste good, but then they let me feel that it was good. As I grew up, I was working in restaurants, had a grass cutting business. I did all types of things. Always ended up in a restaurant at some point, washing dishes, cooking something. While I was in the military, I had a knack for cooking, so we train all week and come back, and they always ask me, what are you making? And it just kind of evolved. And then when I got out of the Marines, I had the GI Bill. I said, well, I had about 20 jobs in 1 year, just trial and error, figured it out. And I said, I'm going to culinary school. And it just kind of, from then on, never looked back.
Jules, however, came from a very different background. She's what I like to call the brains behind the operation, working on the business side, as well as being your bartender and your very lovely host.
So my background is actually accounting and finance. I am a CPA who ended up in the healthcare industry. So I eventually, after working for a Big Six accounting firm, became the head of finance for the largest hospital in the state of South Carolina. And then eventually went to work for a Fortune 50 company as a senior vice president. Obviously, with that evolution through corporate America came a lot of imbalance between work and life, and a lot of stress on family and all of the things that go with that. So eventually, after meeting this guy who's a pretty amazing chef, and we had done a couple of things together, just some catering, and we'd had a food truck at one point, and just some other things that we'd done in life. After we walked the Camino de Santiago, we knew we were going to go somewhere, and I knew that one day I wanted to open a bed and breakfast after our first trip out of town together. And so we came to St. Croix and looked at a couple of properties and said, okay, we're just going to do it, and this was it.
Okay, maybe making the decision to live your dream sounds easy, but the Virgin Islands have different regulations, so it can be hard to understand the logistics of starting a business somewhere new. Julie explained what it was like compared to the process in the States.
Very different. And, a lot of folks would say it's more challenging. For me, I frankly found that there's less red tape and more personalization. So, there's still very clear steps. The USVI has a business structure in place and guidelines for everybody. So I don't want to make it seem like that it's not up to professional par with anything that the States has to offer, because it definitely is. However, you just don't have to step through as much red tape. If you just go to the health department or to the licensing department, say good morning, smile, have a genuine conversation with folks, they will help you figure out the steps that you have to execute to make it happen. And then you just kind of drive around the island and you get it done. So to me, it was fun to have such a personal experience setting up the business, as opposed to it being all paperwork and signing on the line. So I didn't find it to be that difficult.
Awesome. After getting through the process of legally starting a business, there's also getting business, especially since the island is filled with other hotels and places to stay. Adams and Julie walked me through their first gigs and how they became the popular establishment they are today.
Our first private chef catering gig here was for a group of 15 strippers from Miami.
Okay, but really.
So we actually started with a very quiet, soft opening. We started the private chef services in October of 2019. And then we were finally ready to open the bed and breakfast in January of 2020. So, and we didn't do really a whole lot of marketing around that. We, had our website set up, we had our reservation system set up, and the very first phone call we got was someone looking to come stay in a couple of weeks, and we both looked at each other like deer in headlights. How do I even take this guy's credit card? Just like terrified. And then it just kind of started going from there, and we've actually had guests who have helped us expand our social, media network, and folks who are really supportive of us. We've had guests who've just within a year come back 6 times, even though we were shut down 5 months of that. So folks just tend to kind of fall in love with the island, and I'd like to believe they fall a little bit in love with us because we become great friends with all the folks that stay here, and it just has kind of grown organically as opposed to forcing it, which has been really beautiful.
Although the island thrives on tourism and has many residents that have moved there from the States, it can still be challenging to get acquainted and fit into the community. So how exactly do the locals of the island feel about newcomers?
Well, they don't know you're coming, so you have to assimilate to them. Their main thing is greetings. So saying good morning, good afternoon, and good night. They don't say good evening, they say good night. So if you answer the phone, they say, and if it's 5 o'clock, they say, good night, how are you? Well, you're not used to that. So you have to learn how to speak their language. And so it's interesting. But somebody from New York would not get used to that because everyone talks to each other. You walk into a room, you say good morning to everyone. And for anyone that's not used to that, it's probably hard to get used to.
One of the characteristics that causes people to choose St. Croix over the other islands is its tight-knit community. Because it is so small, everybody knows everybody. This also makes them a very giving and supportive community filled with island hospitality, and that also extends to newcomers.
Gosh, it's such an integrated community that we just all get to know each other and help each other. So, when we were shut down for COVID, we put a sign out front, private chef to go, and using Sylvia as the example, she was one of the first to call and order. We just help each other. So I have found that the businesses here, they don't really worry about how long you've been on island. They just want you to be kind.
Awesome. It doesn't matter where you go. It's pretty much an open doors. They welcome you in. We haven't been anywhere yet where we've been looked at differently because, everyone here is dependent upon tourism, and that their money spends just as good as everyone else's. We've been taken in, I'd say, open arms, especially places like Sylvie's. We've never been to, there's certain places we haven't been to yet just because we're busy. And I think the same with them. If we were open to the public, we've already getting phone calls. Are you serving breakfast? Are you serving breakfast? Are you serving? So, and when the locals, like Sylvie's and other places, when she serves breakfast, we always try to go and support each other.
Although Adams and Julie found their moving process and integration into the community quite easy, there was still some challenges along the way, and ones they still have to adapt to trying to run their business.
Well, the saying here with a lot of the new people that move here, there's a price to pay for paradise. And so it's shocking at first. It was a third world country from what you're used to. Big box stores and the conveniency of stores and everything else, brand new at the convenience. Here, you might get cell service. The stores might be open. You go to the grocery store, they might be out of totally lettuce. You're waiting for it to come up. So it's just, you have to get used to the slow pace of life. And basically that's what we chose for. We chose to do is come here for the slow pace. So if you're not ready for it, it's going to be a rude awakening.
The biggest challenge with the move itself was just, how to establish life here and having what you want and need. We ended up downsizing significantly. We sold our cars, most of our furnishings. We just offloaded a lot. So we really didn't have a whole lot to transport here. But then once it's time to get the business up and running, it's okay, well, what do you need and how do you get it? And so establishing business relationships with, the shipping, places and figuring out where you can get your things from and how do you get it delivered here and all of that sort of thing. That was probably the biggest challenge for us. And frankly, because it's an island, things kind of ebb and flow. And so what worked in October might not work in March. And so you have to kind of readjust constantly and be okay with that. You just have to have a lot of patience here, which is great. I mean, it really helps relieve a lot of stress that you're not constantly worrying about it, because if it doesn't make it here, you just figure something out and life keeps going.
Now that they have everything figured out, it may come across that this was an easy choice to change their entire way of living. But if you've ever thought about doing this, there's thousands of fears that would cross your mind. So don't be fooled. They went across theirs too.
Well, I was told by one person a long time ago when I opened up a small cafe and coffee shop. He asked me if I was scared. You scared? And I said, nah, I'm good. I think I'm fine. He says, you need to be scared. So if you're not scared, you need to have a little bit of fear in you, especially if you're going to succeed. If you're too overconfident, you're not going to work hard enough. So I guess it's best to always be an underdog. I think moving down here and it was a huge fear because it's a totally different culture, and we come from a fast-paced life, and we had to learn to actually slow down. And even though we practiced it for 3 months, could we actually do it? And I think we're doing pretty well.
It may seem scary to take that leap from everything you know, but Adam and Julie prove it's your life and you should live doing what makes you happy. The Hayneses and Coral's Edge are just one of many success stories, but if you're feeling burnt out and need a change, maybe you could be the next.